He's just a high school graduate and super poor. Michael probably invited me to the singles party as a scapegoat to make himself look better. Sure, he's usually competent at work and is a promising man who graduated from a prestigious university and works for a major corporation. But he might have overplayed it this time. After sending the drunken Michael home, I stayed behind with the three women. We were just talking, and they asked if I'd like to have another drink somewhere quieter. In the end, we moved to a quieter place and continued drinking, no longer treating it as a singles party. My name is Jim Johnson. I work at a law firm and am 29 years old. The firm I work for is one of the largest in the city. We have a diverse group of professionals, including lawyers, judicial scribes, and administrative staff. I'm a practicing lawyer and an associate director. Our firm is staffed with young and talented individuals. Let me share a bit about my childhood. Both of my parents were lawyers, and I was raised in London until I started elementary school. My parents were international lawyers, but London was dangerous at the time, so they decided to send me to school in the U.S. I lived with my paternal grandparents while my parents traveled between the U.S. and London for their work. Adjusting to school in the U.S. was tough since I had been in the U.K. all my life. Eventually, I made friends but preferred to be a lone wolf. I didn't seek to join groups, which suited me just fine. I think it was around that time that I met Michael. We were classmates in elementary and middle school. He was always the leader type, always at the center of the group. We weren't exactly friends, but we weren't enemies either. We just went about our daily lives in our respective roles. In middle school, as the school district expanded, we got more classmates from different elementary schools, but neither Michael nor I changed our stance. I continued at my own pace while Michael remained a standout. We went to different high schools and reconnected about 2 years ago. He suddenly called out to me at a restaurant, and at first, I didn't recognize him. "Hey, is that you, Jim?" "It's me, Michael. We went to elementary and middle school together." "Oh, Michael, it's been a while." Honestly, I was a bit confused. Michael's charisma was still the same, but his appearance had changed significantly. We weren't particularly close back in school, but he never seemed this flashy. He still had a bright personality but was now dressed in obviously expensive branded suits and had an unnaturally perfect hairstyle. "Jim, what are you up to these days?" "I'm usually working at a law firm. How about you?" "I work for a trading company. They say I'm a rising star." "Wow, that's impressive." Michael is in the sales department at Young Trading Company, and according to him, he's highly regarded there. It was typical of Michael to brag like that. He sees himself, and others see him, as a successful guy. "Jim, you graduated from high school, right?" "What? I heard a rumor you graduated from high school and then moved away." "Well, I did move. His house and my grandparents' house, where I lived until high school, were in the same district, so he must have heard about the move. It was so typical of him to assume I only graduated high school. Because of that, I decided to just let it slide. After graduating from high school, I moved to the UK to join my parents and enrolled at Oxford University. Given that I have few friends in the US, not many people knew this about me. I juggled both Oxford and law school and, upon graduation, became a lawyer. With parents who were international lawyers, it was a natural path for me. Like my parents, I also became an international lawyer, worked in London for a few years, and then returned to the US when my current law firm offered me a position. The firm, although large, is relatively new. I joined as part of the founding team and was appointed deputy director, working alongside Mr. Anderson to expand our connections and build the firm to what it is today. A comprehensive legal office where legal issues can be handled in one place. We have attracted business without much advertising. Although I'm often interviewed, I prefer staying out of the spotlight, so not many people know my face. That's why Michael doesn't know my background. Michael's change wasn't just an appearance. He continued talking to me after our chance encounter. "Perfect timing, Jim. Are you free this Friday?" "Friday night? I think I am. What's up?" "There's a drinking party, or rather a networking event. Want to join?" "What kind of networking event?" "Well, to be honest, it's a singles party. We need one more guy." "I'm not really interested." "Come on, don't say that. It's at that Michelin star restaurant in the city that everyone's talking about. It's a rare opportunity. Michael still thought I was just a high school graduate. I had been to that restaurant several times for client meetings, but I pretended not to know. A singles party at such a famous restaurant. That's pretty fancy. Are you worried about the cost? Don't worry, I'll cover your share, so just come. I don't care about the singles party, but if it's just about having dinner, I guess I could join. That's fine. Great, I'll send you the details tomorrow. Here's my contact info. Michael handed me his contact information and left. I've never voluntarily joined a singles party. In a way, it might be a rare experience, just as Michael said. As a lawyer, I'm comfortable talking to people, but this might be a unique chance to enjoy a Michelin-star dinner for free, so I decided to go with a light-hearted attitude. On Friday, I headed to the restaurant mentioned in Michael's message. After mentioning his name at the entrance, I was led to a private room. There, Michael and 3 women, who appeared to be office workers, were already seated. "Oh, you made it. This is my childhood friend, Jim. Nice to meet you. I'm Jim. Thank you for having me tonight. Nice to meet you. We work in reception." We exchanged polite greetings. All 3 women were elegant and beautiful. I was slightly curious about how Michael managed to arrange the singles party with these 3 women. With 3 women present, there were only Michael and I as the men. Just when I thought another man might join, Michael started the proceedings. "All right, we're all here, so let's start." "Wait, aren't we missing someone? The other guy canceled last minute. Let's just enjoy ourselves with this group." Thus, the singles party began, but it turned out to be a singles party for Michael, by Michael, and all about Michael. We chatted about general topics and our backgrounds for a while, with Michael at the center. As he drank more, he started to loosen up. I mentioned that I graduated from the University of California with a degree in economics and that I'm doing well at Young Trading Company. Compared to me, Michael is just a high school graduate and isn't well off. It's surprising how different our lives turned out despite growing up in similar environments. "Hey Michael, you're drinking too much," I said. "Oh, I guess that was a sore spot for you. Sorry for bringing it up." "It's not that. It's just ruining the mood. Everyone's having fun, aren't they?" Michael was lost in his own world, bragging about his background. The women seemed completely put off. Should I do something about this? But I was here because Michael invited me for dinner, so I didn't feel the need to put in extra effort. I'd excused myself and headed to the restroom. As I washed my hands, I noticed one of the women looking at me. "Excuse me, sorry about Michael. I didn't know he had such bad drinking habits." "We're fine. More importantly, you're not really a high school graduate, are you?" "What?" I was taken aback. I hadn't shared my background or job with them, and as far as they knew, I was the high school graduate Michael had described. "How did you know? You don't recognize me, do you? This is our first meeting, right?" "Actually, I know you. I'm Jessica. I work at the reception desk at your law firm." "No way," I said, surprised. "I recognized you as soon as you arrived. I thought Michael knew too, but then he called you a high school graduate and super poor. I couldn't figure out why. Michael and I aren't close. I just came along for the ride today." "That makes sense. I was surprised to think you were friends with someone like Michael, but now I get it. I hadn't seen Michael in nearly 15 years and didn't graduate from a university in the U.S. I was raised by my grandparents in the U.S. from elementary school through high school, so Michael probably assumed I was poor without my parents around. We went to different high schools and didn't keep in touch, so he had no way of knowing my career path. Michael likely invited me to the singles party thinking I would make him look better. Did he really want to be admired that much? Was he dressing in expensive brands to impress others? I started to feel a bit sorry for him. Not wanting to leave the group hanging, Jessica and I returned to the party. Michael was still in high spirits. "Hey Jim, you're back. We're talking about going to a second place." "Really? Maybe we should call it a night," I suggested. The women were whispering among themselves, clearly unhappy. It would probably be best for everyone if they left. I continued to calm Michael down. In the end, I paid the bill and pushed Michael into a taxi. "Hey, high school graduate, what do you think you're doing? I'm paying. Let's go to the next place." "No, that's enough. Please take him home," I told the driver, sending Michael off. I stayed behind with the three women. Sorry for ruining the evening. Let's just call it a night. We were just talking and wondering if you'd like to have another drink with us somewhere quieter. What? I was surprised. When I told them you were the amazing lawyer who's the deputy director at our firm, they wanted to talk more. You didn't have to say that. It's fine. Otherwise, it would be too unfair for you. In the end, we moved to a quieter place and continued drinking, no longer treating it as a singles party. Let me reintroduce myself. I'm Jim, and I work at a law firm. Come on, Jim, don't be so modest. You're a lawyer and the deputy director of your firm. I don't usually mention I'm a lawyer to new people because some don't see me for who I am once they know. Jim, you went to Oxford University, right? Michael doesn't know that and thinks you're a high school graduate. Yeah, my parents worked in the UK, so it just happened naturally. The two women with Jessica seemed much more interested now. It turns out they were Jessica's college classmates. Fortunately, they didn't change their attitude towards me after learning I was a lawyer. Jessica explained that the man who didn't show up was a mutual acquaintance who had organized a singles party. Why did Michael say those unfounded things about you being poor? Jessica asked. I didn't say that. He just misunderstood. I'm not super rich, so I didn't bother correcting him. How humble can you be? Why would he think that? Maybe because I lived with my grandparents when we were classmates. So he'd assumed you were poor. That's such a narrow-minded view. We weren't that close, so it's understandable. The women, led by Jessica, were completely put off by Michael. He probably invited me to make himself look better. I might be a high school graduate in terms of U.S. education and not exceptionally wealthy, but he never listened to my story and misunderstood my background. Despite graduating from a top university and working at a major corporation, Michael let it get to his head. No matter how much luxury you surround yourself with, it means nothing if your character doesn't match. I don't know how others perceive me, but I would never use others to elevate myself. I couldn't forgive him for implying my grandparents were poor. Although my parents worked overseas and frequently returned to check on me, it was my grandparents who raised me daily. They taught me not about becoming a lawyer, but about being a good person. I studied hard, inspired by both my outstanding parents and my humble grandparents. Naturally, I wanted to become a lawyer like my parents and a person of integrity like my grandparents. When I was working as a junior lawyer in London, I was approached by Director Anderson, the director of my current firm. Despite being young, Director Anderson was a prominent lawyer in the U.S., disillusioned with the old practices at his previous firm and determined to start a new one. Mr. Anderson, also an international lawyer, had connections with my parents. One day, he contacted me from the U.S. with an offer. Jim, would you like to help me establish a law firm in the U.S.? He asked. I knew of Director Anderson through my parents, but was surprised by the offer to co-found a new firm. Why me? I used to work in the legal field in London, so I've heard about your excellence. Your parents, the Johnsons, helped me a lot. I've heard you worked with them when I was still finding my way. Your parents helped me grow into a competent lawyer in London. They taught me to be a person first, then a lawyer. Knowing that, I have no doubt you must be exceptional too. I think you're overestimating me. I'm just an ordinary person. That's exactly why I want you, Mr. Anderson said. He persistently persuaded me, even though I initially planned to continue working in London. After much deliberation, I decided to accept his offer. Although I had wanted to stay in London, I knew I could always return. I was genuinely happy and felt a sense of purpose being invited by someone who saw potential in me. Additionally, having my grandparents, who watched over me until I graduated high school, back in the U.S. was a significant factor. Even though my grandparents weren't lawyers, I considered them my true parents. My only concern while in London was leaving them behind in the U.S. So I returned from London and helped establish the new firm. Mr. Anderson and I recruited and carefully selected young talented professionals without compromising on quality. After the firm opened, it became a bit of news. Director Anderson, already well-known, was often busy with media appearances. Due to my personality, I stayed out of the spotlight and focused on the background work. Thus, it wasn't surprising that Michael knew nothing about me. As I shared this with the women, time flew by. We should probably head home. It was great talking with you, Mr. Johnson. I had a lot of fun. Please just call me Jim. Let's skip the formal titles. But you are the deputy director. I'll make sure to tell Michael. There's no need. I doubt I'll see him again. No, I need to set the record straight. As we parted ways, Jessica spoke to me. Mr. Johnson, would you like to have dinner again sometime? I felt a connection with Jessica, having met her coincidentally despite working at the same firm, and accepted her invitation with a smile. It was clear she didn't ask me out because of my title. We exchanged contact information and went our separate ways that night. A few days later, I received a call from Michael. Jim, you're a lawyer? Yes, why didn't you tell me? I said I worked at a law firm. I thought you were a janitor or something. I always thought you were just a high school graduate raised by your grandparents. Well, I did live modestly. But it's all a lie. You're an Oxford graduate and a lawyer. I never lied. You just misunderstood. Unlike his confident demeanor when we reunited, Michael was now stumbling over his words. He must have learned the truth through Jessica. Whether I'm an Oxford graduate or a lawyer, I'm still just a classmate. This is why I usually don't talk much about my background. Some people see me differently once they know. Michael seemed completely intimidated by me now. Since then, he never invited me to another singles party. Around the same time Michael contacted me, Jessica also reached out. She wanted to discuss something over dinner, so we arranged to meet. I've been studying since last year. Studying? I want to become a lawyer. I started working at the firm to get closer to the legal field. I have a law degree but haven't passed the bar exam yet. I see. Why not work as a paralegal instead of a receptionist? Jessica explained that she was aiming to become a lawyer to repay her single mother, who raised her alone. She pursued her dream by attending a state university with a scholarship but hadn't passed the bar exam yet. Although she wanted to work as a paralegal, she needed to support her mother, so she worked as a receptionist during the day and at a restaurant at night. I can talk to the firm about having you work as a paralegal. That's not why I brought this up. I was wondering if I should keep trying or if it's time to give up. I support you to keep going. It's best to work as a paralegal and get first-hand experience. It's the quickest way. Are you sure? If given the chance, I'd love to try. Then let's arrange the transfer right away. I'll support you as much as I can. So Jessica transitioned from being a receptionist to working as a paralegal under a lawyer. I also arranged to meet with Jessica once a week for what turned into study sessions. Jessica's skills and confidence grew rapidly, and she looked much more radiant than when we first met at the singles party. Then came the bar exam. Jessica gave it her all and passed with flying colors. She was no longer a receptionist or a paralegal. Wearing her lawyer's badge, Jessica was filled with pride and confidence. Watching her, I realized something. I'd have fallen in love with Jessica, who had worked so hard and achieved her dream. As a newly minted lawyer, Jessica decided to gain experience by working at another law firm. She would be busier now, and we might not see each other as often. I decided to confess my feelings to her. Jessica, congratulations. You really worked hard. Thank you. It's all thanks to you and everyone else. Jessica, I've liked you for a long time. Will you stay by my side from now on? Oh my, I've probably liked you since even before that, when we met by chance at that singles party. I was so surprised. I'm honored that you feel this way. Yes, let's be together. And so Jessica and I started dating. Though our busy schedules meant we couldn't see each other often, we cherished the time we spent together. A year passed quickly, and Director Anderson had some news for me. Jim, I'm thinking of moving to London. What? I've been invited back by the firm I worked for in London. After careful consideration, I've decided to go. That's great. I wish you all the best. And I want you to take over this firm as the director. Do you think I'm up to the task? I've been watching you, and I know you can do it. You're the only one I trust with this. Thus, I became the director of the law firm. The following month, although I had always worked behind the scenes, I could no longer stay out of the spotlight. As the director, I found myself increasingly appearing on TV and in magazines, leading to even busier days. Despite my hectic schedule, I decided to take a vacation to spend time with Jessica. Though we kept in touch regularly, seeing her after a long time made me realize how much she had grown. You're the director now, It feels like you're drifting away. I'm busier, but I haven't changed. Hey, I have a proposal. A proposal? How about becoming a family? Wait, are you? It's a proposal, yes. Wow, I'm so surprised, but I'm so happy. Yes, I'd love to. Jessica's face lit up like a blooming flower when I placed the engagement ring on her left ring finger. She teared up a bit. You're making me laugh and cry at the same time. Of course, it's a flood of happiness. I then suggested that Jessica and her mother move in with me. Since her mother was her only family, it was the natural thing to do. After confirming it was okay with me, Jessica started crying tears of joy. We decided to set up our new home close to my grandparents' house. This way, I could also keep an eye on my beloved grandparents. Upon announcing our engagement, my parents immediately planned to return to the U.S. Next weekend, we are organizing a family dinner, including Jessica's mother. I'm at the peak of happiness, but I know I couldn't have achieved this alone. My grandparents, parents, Mr. Anderson, Jessica, the staff from both the London and the U.S. offices, all of them helped me get to where I am today. And yes, I should also thank Michael, who inadvertently brought Jessica and me together. I will keep these feelings in my heart and continue to work hard, never resting on my laurels.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1, if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread. hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.